Okay, here's an initial mock-up just to take a look and see what we've got here. This is the 110 project, and I ended up putting the sheet metal back on it and got the engine mounted in it for now, just in a mock-up position just to see if that's going to work okay. So far it looks pretty good. I just tack welded some pieces up here to bolt the engine into. I think the original frame is going to work okay. I haven't had to modify it yet, and so I've just got the metal back on, put the dash back on it. When I cut off part of the front of the sheet metal here to clear the flywheels, I've got some more trimming to do to clear my hands when I'm cranking the engine. Don't want to get my hand caught in there, that's for sure. So just an initial mock-up here. I've trimmed off some junk, the old hitch that was on it, trimmed it off. Got a little grinding and a little straightening to do on the original hitch, but that's going to go back original. Haven't put the clutch pedal back on it yet. Still have some trimming to do here. Just an initial mock-up to see how it's going to look, and you know, it's going to look pretty cool. I like the look so far. I don't like the dash sticking up like that. I did some trimming down here. It had all this hitch and whatever welded to the front end of it, so that's all been taken off. And the engine sits fairly low in the frame. Looks pretty good. I think it's going to work at that level. I think the frame is going to work unless I run into problems with the belts and the drive system. That's for another day, but initially I want to get the sheet metal straightened out on it and get it mounted, and I want to get a new seat for it. And mention this dash. This dash just doesn't look right in this configuration. I don't need all this stuff on it anyway, and I think it'll look a little better when this is not sticking up here. So I'm gonna actually put a piece of metal across these two pieces here and make the dash at a different angle, at a lower angle, and maybe make an opening here where I can get in and change the batteries and whatever, because it's going to have batteries for the ignition system to run, and also I want to put some lights on. So there it is initially. As far as the steering goes, I was a little concerned about the weight of the engine on the front wheels, and my gosh, it turns real easy. There's one finger just turning it on the steering wheel to steer the thing, so I can even add a little weight up here if I have to. I've got to fab up a fuel system for it yet, and there's probably going to be a battery go in it, and maybe a few other things, possibly a front bumper to protect the mixer that sticks out. The mixer sticks out quite a ways in front of it, so I wouldn't mind coming up with a Nerf bar or something like that to protect the front of the engine, just so I don't accidentally run it into something and break a rocker arm or a mixer or a mixing screw or something like that. So some things to do there. I've got some ideas for an exhaust system, more of a tractor-ish looking exhaust system for it. So there it is. So it's got to come all back apart, of course, and some changes be made, and we'll just keep going. I may have to mock it up 3 or 4 times before I actually can put many bolts back in it. So we'll keep moving. Okay, I've been doing some figuring and some engineering work here, and didn't want to bore you with all that, but I am going to show you what we've got so far. I've got a pulley on here. The flywheel fits on here fine. About 1/4 of an inch sticks out of the crankshaft, sticks out of the flywheel, so I've got a good grip on the flywheel. I'm trying to go for a internal belt, everything inside the frame. And what I've come up with so far, I've got the thing stripped down here pretty much. And what I've come up with so far is a pulley, basically a step pulley. I'll show you here in a second, that goes inside the frame. Let me get back here. It'll be inside the frame at about this area here. And I've got a small belt that comes down from the sheave of this pulley down to that, and that'll be essentially a jack shaft. And the belt that comes back up from the rear end here, comes along inside the frame, will go around that pulley too. And it's going to be overdriven because the engine speed is going to be slower than the original engine. And so I'm overdriving. I'm going with a taller pulley here, down to a short pulley, up to a tall pulley, and back to this one. So now I'm trying to step up the speed here. I do want to be able to get somewhere on this in a reasonable amount of time. So it's going to be, I want it to be able to put it in higher gear and be able to creep along, you know, a pretty good clip if I want to. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at here. I kind of give you an overview. Basically, you know, the frame is stripped down. It's dirty. I haven't cleaned it up yet. So when I get my engineering work done here and fabrication more completed, why I'll do some cleaning on it. But basically this is a spring-loaded idler that will work nice. It'll keep the belt from the jack shaft pulley back to the rear end. It'll keep it tensioned good. And I'm using a little bit smaller belts. I mean, I'm not going to be plowing to this thing. All I expect of it is to move itself. So you know, I don't need a lot of power to the transmission back there. So the engine looks pretty good on there. I've also trimmed the fender, the rear fender, to fit on there too. We'll see it here in the next clip. But right now I'm working on the jack shaft pulley. So I wanted to show you where we are at this point. And I've had to do a little machine work on this pulley. I machined the inside surface here so I could set it over just a little closer to the engine and get a little better alignment down the side of the frame, which I've got just, don't know if you can see that from your vantage point, but I've got a pretty good alignment down the side of the frame there, good clearance. This outer sheave may be used for an auxiliary drive. I may drive a generator with it. That's yet to come. We're just working on getting it to propel itself at this point. So let's step over to the lathe. I'll show you what I'm doing. And before I show you the lathe work here, let me pan around here to my belt collection. I've had these belts out. Anytime I scrap a piece of equipment, I'll save the belt off of it. So these are all used belts. They come in handy. It doesn't look like I'm going to have the right size, but I won't know until I get that jack shaft pulley placed in the frame. Then I'll start fitting belts for it. But you know, I save all these, and they're in the way most of the time, hanging on the wall. But you know, when you need them, you need them. So let's get back over here and let me show you what I'm doing here. This is a pulley that I found that I am going to make the jack shaft pulley out of, and I'm in the process now of cutting this third groove off of it here. So I'm going to get that cut off, and then I'm going to counterbore each end of this bearing pulley for some bearings. I've got them laying over here. Here is these bearings are metric, but I don't care. I had them in the scrap drawer. So trying not to buy very many parts for this. I'm going to try, it's one of my challenges to to just build this out of stuff I've got laying around. So some of this stuff I scrap out, I save these things, and sometimes it's in a drawer for 10 years before I ever use it. So I don't know how long I've had these bearings, but they feel good, so I'm going to use them. And I'm going to make a stub shaft for this to mount on, and then I'll mount stub shaft inside the frame of the tractor. So let's get you on a tripod here. We'll do a little machine work. Okay, my bearing is 470 thousandths. It's a metric bearing, but I just run on the thousands here. 470 thick. So I got to cut this pocket 470 deep. So I set the indicator up here just on the carriage and up against the headstock here, and that'll get me my depth. So I've been taking a few passes here. There's 50, 60, 70. I'm just hitting the shoulder in there, so I'm doing good there. So I got the shoulder set pretty well. So I'm going to reset the indicator now. I'm going to lay it off for safety. Reset the indicator up against the cross slide. And I'll zero it in here in a minute. But now I can watch the indicator and get my ID correct. So I'm going to take a measurement here on the ID and see where we're at to start with here. With chips out there, full of chips. A lot of guys use compressed air to blow that out with, but I don't care for it. I'm using compressed air around the lathe. Let me find the right snap gauge here. I'm at 1.480. We'll do a little math here. We'll see what we have to do here. Okay, we're real close here. The bearing just is gonna start. I want to chamfer this, and that's about a 5/1000 press fit. So I'll turn this around and we'll cut the pocket in the other side. Probably show it to you when we're finished with it here. Okay, got it out of the lathe now. Got it bored. And the bearings just start, so we'll go over and press them in. Let's step over to the press. Okay, over to press here. I had to change my dimensions here. I had to go 1/1000 undersize on the bore to get the bearing to fit right. It wanted to go in too tight where I had it, so I've bored both of these now to 1/1000, and I've got to set this, press this one in the rest of the way here. 1/1000 undersize is where I need to be. So I re-chucked it, re-indicated it in, and bored it once again to 1/1000 under. And the bearings fit real good right now. And you don't want much more pressure than that going in, and there it's seated. Let's pop this out, take a look at it. See how it feels? It feels wonderful. This one feels good. So I believe we're ready to make a shaft for this now. Did I scare you? I just wanted to see if you were still watching. Okay, here we go. Here's a pulley. And And here is the stub shaft that I made to go inside the frame. So it bolts to the side of the frame. This washer with a countersunk head here goes in there because the fender comes over the edge of this. So, okay, this goes in here like so. And this spacer goes out here, and there will be this bolt's got to be cut off, but there will be a bolt and a flat washer and probably a lock washer to hold that, and that will keep this pulley on the stub shaft. So that's what the jack shaft pulley looks like, completed. So okay, I've got the frame stripped down once again, and this time getting ready to paint it. I've already tested it at this point with the engine on it. I've driven it and it drives fine. I got to work on the fender, and I had to work on the engine a little bit here. I had to put some sealer on on this crack here in between the two pieces here, this parting line. That wasn't sealed before and it was leaking oil, so I just had grease on it just to test the engine because I didn't know if I was going to have to go back inside or not. Turned out I did not have to. So here's a little better look at the pulley. This is a tapered fit pulley. There's a tapered connection on there that can be removed, held on with bolts. Makes it easy to get on and off. Flywheel comes off pretty easy. I have to do that to get a belt on there. The belts are so short. So the engine's ready to go back on. I just got to get the frame cleaned up, and I think I'll squirt a little paint on it while it's apart. Let me show you the belt tightener assembly. Okay, here it is in all of its crudeness. This is actually part of the variator, and I could not use the variator. I actually had to cut it off. But I used all the linkage for it, and that all hooks up to the clutch pedal. So I added this rod, or this lever here, added this rod, come down here, and I made the belt tightener right here, and just turned some parts out on the lathe and welded it up. I made a tab there, welded that to the frame, used a idler pulley. I have adjustment there. I've also got adjustment built in right here. This will actually rock back and forth here if I need to. So that's it. I don't have the pulley in the frame yet because I have to get the engine in here first, get the first belt on the small pulley, and then I can put the belt to the rear end on the pulley. So that's basically it. I'll show you how it works here. I've just got the clutch pedal just setting on here. Pretty ingenious how they do that. A lot of good engineering on this tractor. But anyway, when I push the clutch down, that pulls the idler up, takes it off the belt, going to the engine, and stops the tractor, vice versa. So there's all the linkage down there that used to go to the variator. Here's the shaft from the clutch pedal going through. It's operating what used to be the variator linkage. That piece of angle right there is the stop. I got that. I'm going to add a bolt to that so I can change the position of the stop on the pedal. I've got to do that yet, but that's it. It works great. I have test driven the tractor and it does work great. I've got good power transfer back to the diff, and I'm just working on doing some cleanup on the frame. I'm going to get the frame outside and power wash it and probably squirt a little paint on it before I put the engine back in and get it back together. I'm just going to get it back together preliminarily for the first couple of shows here. I'll see if I need to make any changes. I'll go drive it around the show a little bit, see how it acts, and see what kind of ideas I can come up with next for it, but we'll get her back together here shortly. And here she is running.